I'm going to start with a confession. I'm not actually a political scientist. So I haven't come today equipped with some wonderful charts and graphs, and don't ask me who's going to win the midterms or the next presidential election. I'm a political theorist, and that means that I study the fundamental ideas, values, and assumptions that underpin our political life and our political institutions. How do political theorists do this? Well, we deeply read and analyze the works of great thinkers. We try out new ideas and interpretations at papers and conferences. We teach. We take long walks. We drink a lot of tea and coffee. And we look to current court cases and public controversies and try and figure out what's really at stake in terms of the values in those debates. So let's start by looking at one of those. I'm going to talk today about what's at stake when we educate citizens. Let me ask for a quick show of hands. How many of you are familiar with the 2010 Texas textbook controversy? Okay, quite a few. So the State Board of Education in Texas is responsible for setting guidelines and standards which publishers have to follow if they wish to have their textbooks published. And since the market size of Texas is so large, quite often, as goes Texas, so goes the rest of the nation. In 2010, the conservative majority on the Texas Board of Education wished to rebalance the curriculum by emphasizing more conservative ideas, figures, and movements. Now you might think, okay, balance is good. People disagree over moral matters and values, and students should be exposed to a mixture. But there's a problem. When the sole Hispanic representative on the board proposed that more Hispanic and Latino role models be included in the curriculum, hardly an outlandish thing for Texas, she was voted down by the conservative majority. So is this really balance being sought, or are we simply looking at yet another partisan struggle over civic education? Now, as a political theorist, I try and make sense of this by looking to the fundamental values of liberal democracy. Now, a quick note, that's not big L liberal as in tax and spend and big government. A liberal democracy, small l, small d, means a society which encodes certain basic values into its institutions. Values like core basic rights, like equal respect for all citizens, and like the accountability of government to citizens. In a well-functioning liberal democracy, citizens are taught to respect a plurality of worldviews, moral and religious beliefs. The state doesn't just enforce one. And they're also taught to uphold basic rights. That's good liberal democratic citizenship, but it's a hard balance to strike. You push too hard on the promotion of liberal values, and you risk endangering the wide variety of moral traditions that liberal democracy protects. You don't push hard enough, and you undermine the commitment to liberal democratic values. So what do? Do we prize teaching liberal democratic civic values? Or do we prize protecting moral traditions from potential educational overreach? It's a really tough choice. And my research has shown me that political theorists, although we might want to do both of those things, usually end up having to pick one over the other. People who design citizenship programs usually have to try and avoid controversy or deal with it very lightly. And civic education ends up the subject of an uncomfortable balance of power between parents, the schools, and the state. Think about that for a second. Parents, the schools, and the state. What's missing? Well, you might ask, where are the students in all of this? In fact, only this week, groups of high school students in Colorado staged walkouts in protest at the redefinition of their citizenship education to define good citizenship as excluding protest and civil disobedience. This, along with my own experience from teaching citizenship to pre-college kids, tells me that students themselves are engaged and want to be involved in their own development as citizens. So how can we help them make sense of being a good citizen while also upholding their own tradition? I'm working on a new approach, which I call value integrity. It's still in the blueprint stage, but basically it means including a lot of different voices from communities, from parents, from teachers, and allowing the students and supporting the students to be able to make sense of the connections between basic rights and civil values on the one hand, and their moral traditions on the other. Why does this matter? And why is it important for education? Well, if we teach students in this way, to build the connections for themselves between political values and their traditions, we avoid allowing the state to impose a one-size-fits-all solution to this problem on citizens. We also teach them to respect both sources of value, political and moral. And finally, when we teach students to engage with this problem of disagreement in this way, then we give them each a stake in their own development as citizens. Thank you very much.